Good evening, everyone. I'm going to revisit the idea today of what can we really know. That was the exact title, I guess, of one of my older videos. And sometimes I go back over my videos because I think about a subject and I think, I've already done so many videos about this, but when I revisit an idea, it's because it's something that I think is really important. In fact, actually that's the title of the book I wrote on the Kindle. It's What Can We Know? I forgot about that. Just that idea of what can we know, I think, is important. Because when we open up a dialogue and ask ourselves what can and can't we know and which things can and can't we prove, it is important because when I reflect through history as the best that it's presented to me, because history is flawed and skewed, we only get the picture of it. You can look back 20 years ago and get a picture of the 80s of what you think it might have been like. If you didn't live there, no description is going to do history justice. When we get history, we get bits and pieces. We get famous people, we get infamous people. We get folks who have been great thinkers, people who have spent their entire lives on one philosophy or one idea. Some of them, they were religious based. Some of them were based on something like free will and determinism. Others have spent entire lifetime studying socialist and capitalist philosophies to see what the best form of government is. And like that old quote by Winston Churchill, it says, democracy is the worst form of government except all the others that have been tried. And that always sticks with me because it reminds me that even, the wisest political leaders know that the system is flawed. There's no illusions. It's because we need to look at the bigger picture of things. And we're looking at too small of a plate. We're not looking at the full meal to see, to plan ahead and say, okay, what's going to work for everyone? This goes back to what I was in that chat I was talking earlier about nationalism and what an issue it is with everyone wants to love their country, and you should, because if you don't, then another country will come and take it away from you. That's just the way it works. Animals in nature aren't naturally, they're not naturally competitive. They're not out to compete with one another. They're just out to live. But once in a while somebody does come up short on ends or can't find a burrow, and they try to run someone else out, and that person has to defend themselves, that animal. And the same way here, in other words, you can't detach yourself from being affected by others. There's always going to be that degree of protecting your own, which means nationalism means protecting your own country. Where do you draw the line? How big can your military be? Is this just something humans are destined to do? Is have militaries to fight in wars? But that's another issue. You can look back historically and say men have always fought. It's always been a battle over resources and land. But why is that? Well, a person could dissect it and say, well, it's because somebody has something someone else wants. Or somebody believes something that someone else doesn't believe, and they feel as if their ideas are being threatened, such as religious wars. But all holy wars, it seems, at the heart have land or goods as their ends, as their end means, their end goal. And the means is through using people's religion as a catalyst, as a front for going to war. Just like so many leaders do, by saying that God's on our country's side. Any human, any grown adult, man or woman, who has a rational mind, who's over the age of 15, who listens to someone say that God supports our country, and doesn't immediately shudder at the thought of someone actually saying that, just doesn't understand the implications of what it means to say that a divinity would be on the side of an invisible border, a country, lines drawn in the sand. It's ludicrous. But we do. It's because that's how we rationally justify going to war. If our country was fighting against other Christians, other Christian nation, it would be a different story. We'd have to find a different excuse, a different reason to be there, you know. But, you know, that old term, God-fearing, comes up quite often. People fear the wrath of God, the wrath of the devil, and they figure if somebody else believes something different, it's threatening, you know, the well-being of their children who may be, you know, warped by the devil, whatever. I'm not going to get into the religious aspect of it. But we start to wonder, can we do anything about these issues? And by looking back through history, we see that, and that this is, I'm trying to tie this in with what I was saying about seeing the big picture and about understanding people, is to know that religion's not going away, politics aren't going away, emotions aren't going away, nothing is going to disappear. All of the patterns that we have right now within humans are part of nature, and we have broken away by creating some crazy inventions that make it look like we're completely separate from nature. For example, yes, we can process crazy plastics, we can make atomic bombs, we can basically replace the entire body of a human, you know, so long as their brain's still active and their heart's pumping, you can replace a heart. We can do a lot of things, but it doesn't make us any less of a part of nature, if that makes sense. Just because our consciousness has allowed us to flourish and prosper and create new things, that's just the way that it is. You know, whether God intended it, nature intended it, or it's all accidental, it doesn't matter. Here we are, we have this consciousness, this awareness. So, really I found this important because trying to get to the root of what can we know means dissecting the things that we can't know. And so, because there are so many things that we can know, and there are really only a handful of specific large things that we can't know. I mean, there are things that we don't know that we're learning about. But I think the perfect example would be the big question. Okay, what happened before the Big Bang? You know, even if we can convince ourselves the Big Bang happened, which I don't believe Big Bang Theory, I don't not believe it either. I just think that scientists studying, I've looked into it and seeing the studies, they're seeing that the universe is expanding. They see the red shift, which means that the planets are moving away. They do these star charts to see how far they're spreading. I understand all these things, but it doesn't mean that everything came from a pinhead. It's just, you know, it doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant stuff. See, people will argue about these things for weeks, months, years, but I don't see any point, because these are the questions, the things we can't know. And even if we can know, we can't prove. You see what I'm saying? Even if we have a mathematical concept that explains the entirety of the universe, until each human can understand those mathematical equations, it won't make any sense to most people. And I don't think that there is an equation, of course. And I think even those who might have that equation wouldn't understand it. But math can explain much of life, is what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean that we can understand why, or what do these patterns do for us? What is it? How do we benefit from this? You know, what's the point? So, by dissecting what we can't know, which would be where do we come from originally, and the question of where are we going. There's also the question of do we have a soul? And although they have, let's talk about the aura, let's just say the aura, the energy field. Even Russians have been able to measure this field with their, very fine devices that can measure the heartbeats, energy from up to 30 feet away. You know, the EMP, the magnetic pulse that your body makes. We know that when fields interact, it causes a disturbance in each field. So it would only lead one to believe that people are interacting with one another by being close to each other, that we do have some sort of a connection to people without touching them. Now I'm using this as an example of something that I'm pretty much convinced is true, that humans affect others that there are vibes or vibrations, vibratory rates that we affect each other with that work somehow. This can never be proven conclusively for other people, for everyone. I just talked about the beginning of the universe, the end of the universe, and then all these things, but the really big one is God. That's the one. That's the one you cannot prove or disprove. I had someone tell me the other day that they're 99.9% that they're 99.99% that sure that they're correct, that there was never a creator, and that if there was any intelligence in creation, then there's only a 0.01% chance. It cracked me up because these are just numbers thrown out of somebody's ass. But what a person's saying is that I am so convinced that this is the way it is that there's pretty much no chance. Well, that 0.01% means nothing when there's a 0.000000001 chance that the Earth would even exist. If you look at the statistics of the chances of random life, they're so far beyond comprehension that a 0.01% chance that we were created is a pretty damn good chance. It's compared to that, But I'm not sitting here defending creationism because I'm not a creationist. I'm going to try to lay it out because I don't really talk about what I actually believe as far as God and evolution, because I feel like it's pointless, because each person has their own idea of what these things are. And it's pointless for me to sit here and give you my example, but I'm going to. Right now in my life, I believe that as far as creation, us being created and where we come from and where we're going, and why we're here, my answer for that is, hold on, I'm going to take a toke first. I believe that we are the tentacles of the universe, that the universe, I don't believe we can know what happened before or during or after the Big Bang or anything, or where the universe came from. What I believe is that regardless of what happened then, from the time up to now, all the expansion of the universe was due, or was caused in order for life to take form, because life wants to take hold. It's the default mode of the universe. Now these are just my beliefs, so I'm going to put them as if they're facts, so don't quote me on this stuff as being true. So the universe has a blueprint for life, and these repercussing energies that are going back and forth through the universe, these waves of energy, you might call it a cosmic wave, they pulse from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. There are many different theories on this, cosmic wave theory and whatnot, but I have my own. And there are larger pulses from the greater center, and then there are smaller pulses from the center. Then there are our own sun pulses that affect life on Earth, that affect all the planetary motion and bodies. And that when these cycles happen because of these vibratory rates, because of these shifts in frequency, and that there's an intelligence within the universe that either was already there or manifested out of the existence of the universe. But the point being that at the beginning there didn't have to be a plan in motion, but it appears that there was a blueprint, because life wants to form. If you've ever seen the experiments where they shine a light, it's one of the most amazing experiments to me, where they shine a light through a laser through a sealed test tube into a sterile one, and DNA can actually ride that light, if you will, and form life in the other tube. It's basically saying that light carries the DNA blueprint. It's such a small test. It's such a significant test, and it's such an amazing thing. I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, but it really has huge implications. It means that you could stand 20 feet away from somebody and get a virus through the sun shining through them into you, not through or cosmic waves. Has nothing to do with as much with transmitting it directly. This could answer a lot of questions, but so what I'm getting at is that I believe that these waves of energy, these life blueprints, are constantly pumping through the universe, and that they take hold and they crystallize in certain packets wherever they need to be. I don't know how that part works, and I never will. But, for example, there's a consciousness and awareness that manifests itself within human minds, within human awareness, conscious psyche. Look, the fact that random mutation may be true, I think that's pretty far-fetched. Just as far-fetched as a God creating all of this out of nothing, making man out of clay and a rib. They're both ludicrous theories, but somewhere in between is usually the truth. To me, that means that what I'm saying is the universe was not created by a God who is observing us. Rather, the universe is God. Okay? It's not pantheism, it's not... There are some other terms and theisms people have sent my way, and I've looked into them, and none of them fit what I actually... the way I think, but it's very close to some of these. We look around at all the amazing things in the world. I mean, the connections in nature are astounding. And the more you look into it, if you were to look into nature and try to prove that the connections are random mutation, you start to find that more and more of them are just too crazy to be. I mean, look at a peacock. I mean, and that's one of the simpler animals. Some of these evolutionary traits are just too wild to be random by themselves. But when you have thousands of animals intermingling in these perfect cycles, even the millions of billions of years of evolution could not have brought such an amazing complexity, and then consistently produced new animals to fit within that ecosystem. You see, humans may have evolved randomly to have minds, but by now we would have randomly mutated away from it unless there was a blueprint keeping us in this state. So those vibratory rates shift and change, and we change with them. And this brings the Kali Yuga and the Great Cycle and the Golden Year and the 5,280 year cycles and the 12,900 or whatever, and 24,920 year cycles and the 72,000 year cycles. I don't know how the ancients knew this stuff. I don't. But they seem to know and understand it better than we do. I respect for that, but also we'll never know exactly what they knew. And that's another thing we can't know for sure, is what the ancients really knew, or how they knew it. The fact is, they've left us information to go on. There appears to be something greater than us, and being in denial of that is man's way of perpetuating a lifestyle of materialism without having to feel guilty about it. But guilt is universal, and we know when we're doing right. So I guess all we can do is observe those around us, and if they seem uncomfortable, if they're always trying to press their ideas on us, always trying to convince us they're right, you can tell that they're probably not happy in their convictions. They may really believe it, but there's something wrong with it if they're trying to get everyone else to see that way. So the most balanced view is the person who can see the life just for what they think it is, and accept others for taking life the way they think it is. And so my version of God is that God is experiencing itself through creation. I don't know to what end or what type of intelligence it is or how it works. It may very well be just something that was created by itself, you know. It just took form after it took form. It's an amazing thing. And I'll tell you, it's more amazing to ponder than it ever would be to have the answers. I never wanted to know that. I don't want to know what happened in the beginning, and I sure as hell don't want to know what's going to happen in the end. And that's why I don't get readings or go to psychics or get into my future readings or numerology, any of these things. It's because I don't want to know. I want my future to play out the way it plays out. So, those are my views on stuff and stuff. So, hope you all have a good day and stuff. Peace.